Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how to run a basic ANOVA. So in this data you can see that happiness is our dependent variable and then our dose is our group. So if I click up here, you can see we've got controls 15 minutes and 30 minutes. So we're going to go up here to analyze. You are going to compare means and you're going to go down here to a one-way ANOVA. Our dependent variable, remember your dependent is what you are measuring, and that's going to be happiness. That's going to go over there. And our factor is our groups, right? So if you had, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, that would go in here. So we're going to move our factor over here. So we've got a couple of options in ANOVA. So the first thing we want to do is we want to do contrasts, okay? So because you have three groups in here, you are going to use a polynomial and you're going to use a quadratic. And it's going to ask you for coefficients, and how do you know? So this is planned contrast, right? So this is based on your hypothesis statement. So I'm going to quickly switch between these two screens. So we said our first contrast is going to be between 15 minutes and 30 minutes versus the control. And our second contrast is going to be between 15 and 30 minutes, and we're going to exclude the control. So we have to build this into our contrast formula. So I'm going to go back here. In our first contrast, we said it was going to be -2. Where do I get that -2 from? I'm going to add it. And then I've got 1, and I've got a 1. Okay, so where do these values come from? Again, I'm going to go back here. Here's my -2. Remember that one of our rules, rule number 2, says it has to equal 0. So we are going to put a control as -2, and we're going to compare the control against both of these groups. So our next contrast is going to be a 0, and it's going to be -1, +1. This means that it's comparing the 15 minutes to the 30 minutes. So I'm just going to click next, and I've got 0 because we're not going to be comparing the control. And we've got -1, and we've got +1. Okay, so those are our two contrasts that we're looking at. Post hoc, we've got a couple of options here. Again, he recommends doing the Reg WQ and the Tucky. And then he also suggests looking at the Dene test, and our control category, we know, is not our last group, but it's our first group. And he recommends doing a two-sided. You'll notice in the book that he selects the control, but his recommendation is to do the two-sided. And then you can leave everything else the same right there. And we're going to click continue, and then we are going to click OK. And you're going to get several tables of output. And so on the next presentation, I'll talk about how to interpret and where do we interpret the output for the ANOVA.